sales. So to give you a little bit of background, I'm Stephanie Gillison. I've been in the real estate industry since 1999, right out of college. So, hey, real estate sales is all I know. It's all I've done in my adulthood life, right? And, for those of us that were in the business, way back in 1999, when we entered the industry, interest rates were at 8.5%. That was a good interest rate. So it's kind of like now we're back to what it was when I first got into the business, because for so long we've had these low interest rates and so forth. So one of the things too is that if we've been in the real estate industry quite some time, we've seen the market do these ups and downs, right? We've seen financial turmoil. We've seen, inflation. We've seen people struggle. And so now that we're seeing some changes in the industry, I wanted to talk about short sales, because in 2009, I had to understand, how do I pivot to stay a top producing mega agent in my market? What can I do to stay relevant? And I've always been a firm believer in, it's so much easier to go after low-hanging fruit. And what I mean by the low-hanging fruit is you have people with a need, and why not be that problem solver? I have never been a salesperson, even though as a real estate broker, that's what we are, as a salesperson. I've always been the problem solver. And so I've gone after business where I can insert myself into it and truly solve a problem. And in 2009, 2008 is when it started, but 2009 especially, we started seeing people unable to afford to make their mortgage payments, whether that was on their personal residence, whether it was on investment property, whether it was businesses, commercial real estate, you name it, across the board, people were struggling to make those payments. And that was because we came into a time where in 05, 06, 07, I think if you breathed and you could walk, you qualified to get financed, right? And so that was what happened. Well, now we're seeing not that problem, because we haven't been able to, if we breathe and walk, get a loan in the last, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. But what we're seeing is because so many people bought with an interest rate extremely low, 2%, 3%, 4%. If they didn't lock that in for 30 years, now they're starting to see those interest rates climb. Maybe they're in an adjustable rate mortgage. Maybe, they have been affected by the economy in some way. But for whatever reason, we're seeing scenarios again where short sales may become greater, similar to what we saw in 09, 10, 11, 12, 13, and all the way up to 2015. And so this is a way for you to learn this process, learn how to hunt for these opportunities, and become that problem solver for the hundreds. And so today we're going to dive into quite a few things. And as I stated earlier, this is a series. We're starting today at ground zero. How do we find short sales? What are short sales? What are les pendants? What are all these things? How do we recognize those? That's where we're starting at today. And then we're going to continue this same time every single Wednesday through the 4th week of March, where we're going to dive even deeper into the process. So today we're going to scratch the surface, and I'm going to share with you, how do we find those? How do we find these opportunities? And how do we become problem solvers of these opportunities? So let's talk about that for a second. Where can you find deficiencies or somebody with a loan that's coming due, right? If they've got a loan coming due and they were at a 2.67% interest rate, now all of a sudden they're going to have to go back to that lender and say, okay, now I got to get locked in on something else. But the interest rate's no longer going to be 2.67%. It might be 7%, it might be 8%. That's drastically going to affect and change what their monthly payment is, okay? It's going to drastically affect it. And so we're going to start seeing those things. But where can you find, I don't care where you're located in the United States, You are able to find this information for absolutely free. All it takes is Google, the internet, Google, and your time. That's it. And so look for your county online land records. That's number one. If you are in whatever county you're in, whatever county you want to farm, whatever county you want to service, go to your county online land records. Some counties run these through their county clerk's offices. Everything that we're talking about today, as far as deficiencies, loans coming due, foreclosure filings, which are also called les pendants, all of these things are public record, okay? And they can easily be found once you know how to search for them. If you're on Google and you can't find where these are filed, pick up the phone and call that county clerk's office and ask them the question, where can I pull les pendants filings? Put them to work for you. Let them tell you exactly where you go online to see these things. Most county websites are free, like in the county that I live in. I don't have to pay anything. I can just look them up for free. Some counties, you've got to pay a membership, a couple $100 a year to subscribe, or a few dollars a month to be able to search and look these things up. But the information is out there. If you're in a very rural county that hasn't gone online yet with their systems and their filings, it might require you to get in your vehicle and go to the county clerk's office and manually pull them, okay? If you're in a small market, that still might be the case in certain areas. But for the most part, majority of all counties are online with this information. So county online land records, county clerk's office. There are paid data services out there. I'm going to show you one that I utilize for commercial real estate, and it's one of our tools at eXp Commercial. But there are other paid data services out there. I've never subscribed to any of those in general to look for les pendants filings, but they do exist, and that might be something you want to research. Looking on Zillow for the pre-foreclosure properties is fake news, people. Fake news. Don't ever go by that. By the time Zillow publishes that information, that property's already changed hands and the circumstances have changed. That is they're never accurate. You can't go by it. I get calls all day long because people know in my market, I specialize in this business. And they say, look, I see this property's on Zillow. It's a pre-foreclosure. And I look it up and it's something that sold 18 months ago. Like they were 18 months late to the table, right? So Zillow is fake news. Another way to find out about these in your market is call your closing attorney or title company that you're using. Because here's the thing, they're running preliminary title searches. They're running all of these things inside of their office preparing for closings. So they're going to know exactly where you can go and look up these filings, okay? And then the tool that I love to use that eXp provides for the commercial side of things is reonomy.com. Anybody can buy a subscription to Reonomy regardless of what brokerage you're located at. I love it. It's about $495 a month, but I'm able to pull up all of this information in one place specific to commercial properties, not houses, commercial properties. And so that's great. Another way to look for these opportunities is code enforcement notices and fines, okay? And what I mean by that is if there's people that are not maintaining their properties, code enforcement in that county is dinging them. And that information is public record as well. So if you start Googling that for your county, find those, because it's another great way that it is a signal that someone is in financial distress when they stop maintaining their property, or they're not mowing the lawn, or the gutter is falling off, or what have you is happening. It's another great way to find an opportunity. Again, low-hanging fruit. How do you pivot? How do you go from doing 5 deals to 400 deals? Is by going after people that need their problem solved. And that's exactly what I did with my real estate career starting in 2008. I pivoted and I learned an entirely different approach to problem solve, which led me to doing hundreds upon hundreds of closing each and every single year successfully. And this is exactly how I did it. All right, let's get moving. So what is a les pendens? You've heard me say this. Les pendens is the official public notice that a property has a pending lawsuit or claim attached to it. It is the first step that a lender is going to do. They are putting the public on notice. They're putting the court system on notice that this borrower is 90 days past due. They have the right to file the les pendens, which is the foreclosure filing, once they're 90 days past due. Still means you have a long time before the bank is going to own that property. It is the exact time that you want to start picking up the phone, calling that property owner, and offering up your problem-solving services. Okay? Les pendens can be filed for foreclosures. They can be filed for judgments. For example, a tax judgment or a tax lien, a contractor lien, HOA dues. Homeowner associations can file these. Condo maintenance fees, right? Oh, these can be filed for many different reasons. And we're going to dive deep into most of these. But in all instances, it's putting that borrower on notice that they have a problem, and it's putting you on notice that they need you as their problem solver, okay? This is what a les pendens look like. I'm in Louisville, Kentucky, for those that don't know, and so this is the Commonwealth of Kentucky Jefferson Circuit Court. But throughout the country, majority of all of these, 99% of them all look just like this. The plaintiff is always going to be who has filed that action, okay? It's going to be that lender. It's going to be that contractor. It's going to be whoever has the right to collect debt on that property. And then the defendants, that's going to be the borrower. That's going to be the person that owes the money and has the ownership of that property. And then the property address is usually right there on page 1 with my red arrow telling you exactly where that property is located, giving you the exact address. And so my step forward when I look at this notice is to then go to my online White Pages Pro account or whatever service you're using to look up phone numbers. And that's exactly what I do. Next step is I look up who they are, what is their contact information. Then I look up on the MLS, or if it's commercial, depending on what site, I just make sure the property is not already listed for sale because I don't want to cross a sign. You don't want to be calling somebody that already is committed to a real estate brokerage. Okay? But that is what the les pendens filing notice looks like. Usually, when this notice gets filed, it's a good 6 months or longer before the bank takes another action. So that's how long you have, but you want to get to these quickly because you got to remember, I'm teaching this class today. There's not a whole lot of people on this call, but other people know exactly what we're talking about. So there's going to be other realtors that are going to be picking up the phone, making these types of calls as well. All right. So we just went through that, but I've put that out there. I have a real simple script when I pick up the phone and I call a property owner. It's a very, very simple script. Hi, Nancy. Is this Nancy that owns the property at 123 Main Street? My name is Stephanie Gillison with EXP. I specialize in helping property owners in your situation. I see that Bank of America has filed a foreclosure action against you. My services do not cost you any money out of pocket, and there's a good possibility that you have equity in this property. Our goal is to prolong your stay in the property, make sure that your credit isn't ruined for 20 years with a foreclosure on it. There is no need to file a bankruptcy. We handle all the negotiations with your lender so you do not lose the home or the property to foreclosure. Can I meet you on Wednesday at 3 p.m.? And all of that's true because none of this is going to cost anybody any money out of pocket. Now, filing bankruptcy, that is going to cost them money. They're going to pay $3,000 right up front to file a bankruptcy. And most bankruptcy attorneys will educate them. They'll take their money, but they'll educate them and say, if the house or the property is really your biggest debt, you just need to sell it anyway, right? They're going to push them to get it sold anyway. And so that's why I bring that in to the conversation. They don't need to file the bankruptcy. We don't need them to move out of the property tomorrow or to liquidate their business out of the commercial property tomorrow. We're going to work with the bank, and the whole time we're working with the bank, they get to stay occupying that property. That's the whole point of that. We're offering up the problem-solving service that we specialize in. Now, title search, short sale negotiations, closings. This is so important that you do have a good title or attorney partner in your area that understands short sales and understands your goal, that you want to get these things closed. You want to get them appropriately negotiated with the lender. But the reason why you need that attorney on board or that title company on board early is because you need to run a title on this property as soon as you get it listed. And I make arrangements all the time with my title providers, my title partners, that's a service they're going to provide me for because I'm going to use them for the closing later. But I'm not going to pay out of pocket for these titles because there's going to be too many of them if you do this at the mass scale. And so my title partner knows that they're going to go ahead, run the title on that property, because what I have to understand is what other liens are on that title. We've got the mortgage, but is there a second mortgage? Is there a third mortgage? Are there tax liens? Are there property maintenance liens? Are there unpaid contractors? We need to understand what all we need to negotiate. It's always wonderful when you get a property and Wells Fargo or Bank of America or whoever the lender is the only lien on that property. That's easy breezy. You're dealing with one thing. But when they have multiple, you have to take those into consideration. And it's part of that negotiation process because they're not going to walk away from that property getting $0. They want something. And it's up to us as the negotiators to know that that first lien holder deserves the most money. But they also have to be aware of the additional lien holders that are on that property because they know too that in order to get their money collected, they're going to have to satisfy some of those other debt holders, okay? And so running that title is the only way you're going to understand how many people or how many companies, how many lenders you're going to have to negotiate with. I have done short sales where there's been 18 liens on a property. It is possible. Is it work? Yes. But is it possible? Absolutely. So running that preliminary title is number one. Number two is being able to make sure that when you provide the short sale listing packet to your seller, and I'm going to show you what one of those looks like. So every bank has what they call their homeowner's assistance form, okay? And so on this form, you're filling this out with this property owner for that first lien holder. So let's just say it's Wells Fargo for this. We're going to fill all this information out. But on here, it specifically asks, are there any additional liens, mortgages, or judgments on this property? This is exactly where it is. You're going to disclose to Wells Fargo what else you have working. And if there's more than the 2 spots they ask for, at the very bottom of the form, there's blank space to add the additionals. But this is so important that, all of this is followed and filled out. There's nothing special in anybody's brain about doing short sales appropriately. If you follow this form and you fill out the proper information, and when that gets submitted into that lender, everything kind of freezes on that less pendants filing. The bank actually puts this into their system and it buys you even more time, right? And time is what you want, especially when you have multiple lien holders and you still have to find a buyer for the property. Okay. All right, let's get back to our slides. So when I go to the listing of a short sale, I'm taking with me all of my listing paperwork, everything required in my state to list a property, whether it's residential, whether it's commercial. I am taking that short sale paperwork. Where did I get that short sale paperwork? I Googled Wells Fargo short sale paperwork. Came right up. I clicked the PDF version. I downloaded it. That's where I found it. Now, if you're with a bank or a lender or a service company and you can't find their paperwork, use the Wells Fargo paperwork, because you'll learn as you do these, regardless of the lender you're working with. The only difference between these short sale paperwork packets is the logo. Who cares? White out the logo. But as long as you're filling that information out, that's what the bank is wanting. They're wanting all that information. And because with that paperwork is that authorization for you and your team to be able to speak to the lender on behalf of that borrower, right? It's permission based. Now, at that listing, I take pictures of everything. Right now, I'm going to talk about a house. I'm going to talk about somebody's residence. I take pictures. I don't care if it's disgusting. I don't care if the bed isn't made. It's not about fluff, guys. It's about evidence. It's about being able to show the public and the lender the real, true, hard story of that property. If gutters are falling off, I'm taking pictures of those. I take pictures of everything, especially the mechanicals. If the HVAC looks like it's 100 years old, I want the bank to be able to see that. But I also want any, buyer to see that on the internet as well too, because I don't want to waste my time taking hundreds of people through the property if they don't have a fixer-upper budget, right? Because in a short sale, you're selling them as is where is. People can do inspections, but no repairs are going to get made. Nobody is going to fix anything. And so it may not even be FHA eligible, right? And so you need a buyer that, one, has the budget to be able to fix it up, but also can obtain the right financing, and where you're not going to get hammered by that appraiser, right, on the end user's loan. And so I take pictures of everything because I want the true and accurate representation of that property where everybody can see it. It saves you so much time and energy later, okay? It's the opposite of when you go out and list a luxury home or another home that you're trying to get top dollar for. It's the complete opposite of that. We're not staging, we're not doing anything. Now, we've talked about where can we go and find possible short sale listings. Where else in my career have I gotten short sale listings? By befriending bankruptcy attorneys. I have gotten, over the course of my career, so many referrals just because the bankruptcy attorneys knew, by me marketing to them, by me explaining to them what I do in real estate, they would just be sending me opportunities left and right. And so this is where bankruptcy attorneys can be your friend. And they want to do business with you because more than likely, 95% of the time, even if they do a bankruptcy with a client, the house is going to be ordered by the bankruptcy court to be sold. So they want real estate agents as their friends, especially the ones that can handle the short sale negotiations. You can also get them directly from lenders and loan servicing companies. This morning, I had a meeting, an in-person meeting with a loan servicer. They are doing business in 40 different states on servicing loans. And I'm telling them exactly what I did between the years of 2008 to 2015 when, we were hot and heavy with a lot of these. and they loved it. And then I tell them I'm with EXP, and I say, look, I live here in Louisville, Kentucky. I can handle about 7 surrounding counties, and I can do Southern Indiana. And they said, well, what about the rest of the 40 states that we're servicing? Well, I happen to be with EXP. We're open in all 50 states. I've got business partners all over the country. This is what I was told this morning, which is what wowed me. And I'm so glad we're doing this class today, because we got to get trained up. We've got to get more real estate professionals understanding how to do this business and master this business. Because what I was told this morning is that, during COVID, right? A lot of these things they let go by the wayside. Banks couldn't file the les pendens actions. Now all that's kind of over with, right? They are sitting on, this company that I spoke to this morning are sitting on over 16,000 residential properties that are in the rears. They're getting ready to hammer out that many les pendens, that many foreclosure actions. What do they want? And what do all these asset and service companies want? They want an easy way to do it, because none of them want to own these properties. See, that's the thing. The banks are our friends, because if they foreclose and it gets all the way through the foreclosure process, guess what ends up happening more than likely? They have to own and maintain these properties. They don't want to be in the real estate business. That's why they're in the finance business. So they love to meet agents that specialize in this style of business, so that they don't ever have to worry about taking that property back. And in session 2, the next class that we do, which is a week from today, we're going to dive deep into exactly how you negotiate these short sales to where you get to the closing table, you've protected this property owner, you've made your commission, and you have also made a raving fan out of the lender that you collected that debt for. That's what we're going to dive into next. But meeting with lenders and loan servicing companies, you absolutely ask those questions. We're used to walking into networking events or, parties or whatever, and we're used to speaking real estate. Do the same thing. Start going to some bank networking events and asking the question. I had that meeting this morning, not because I knew the guy, but because I happened to ask the question the other day. What is your bank arm doing with all your bad debt? Oh, well, I don't know. Let me check for you. And he checks and he goes, hey, I want to hook you up with someone. And that's who I had coffee with this morning. The guy that is in charge of the entire distress department of everyone that's not paying a mortgage. And what are they going to do? Because here's the thing. Everyone that's been in real estate the past 3-4 years, been pretty easy, right? You put the sign in the yard, you get multiple contracts. I mean, it's been pretty easy. When everything was going all awesome, these banks laid off those departments. They don't have the manpower they had prior to when they were all staffed up in 09 and 10 and 11 and 12 and 13 and 14. They don't have those same people anymore. It all got great. There was less people not being able to pay their mortgage. So they're sitting there going, oh my God, we need to either hire or figure out a way to solve these problems now, today. And so that's what they're looking for. So make the lenders and the loan servicing company your new prospect. Make sure you're going out to those people as well and finding out who to speak to. Pick up the phone and call the question. My favorite calls that I used to do, my absolute favorite calls. Every single morning I read the Wall Street Journal online on my phone. And you can read Business First journals, whatever, journals are in your market that talk about business. And I would always look and see where they would publish the list, the lists of the banks with bad debt, because that's public information. They have to report that to the FDIC, all right, in the Department of Finance. So I would read when those articles would get published and those lists would get published, and I would pick up the phone and I would call the bank president directly. And I would say, "Hey, Billy, it's Stephanie Gillison. Gosh, I'm so sorry to see that you all are ranked number 3 in all of Louisville, Kentucky for bad debt. Man, I mean, 44 million in bad debt. That's rough." Said, "I got an idea. I got an idea that's going to make you look real good. I want to talk to you about how we can start working on liquidating that bad debt, turning it into good debt, getting it off your books. Because here's what's going to happen. I'm going to make money, you're going to make money, and you're going to get to keep your job." And it's true, right? Because that president has to answer to the board. And so I would have those calls. Some people might think, well, that's nervy. Well, you know what? Being nervy is probably how I got a lot of the business that I got. I wasn't fearful to make those calls and ask for the business. And that's what all this is about. It's asking for the business. It's looking for those opportunities. It's a way to grow your business. When you start doing advertisements out on social media, include the verbiage. Is anybody struggling on their mortgage payments? Anybody got a mortgage coming due or something that's getting ready to adjust? Nobody thought a year ago that rates were going to go from 2.67 to 8%. I mean, did anybody gamble on that? Probably not. So there's a lot of people stuck in a hard spot right now. The great news about it is that I know we keep saying short sales, which means that we're selling for properties, we're selling them less than what somebody owes. But right now, there's going to be a lot of people that are in the foreclosure process or have a loan coming due that they can't afford that mortgage payment, but they actually will sell for more than what is owed. And so there's going to be less negotiations happening that time when you're getting lenders to start thinking about accepting less. But I still, regardless of if it's going to be a short sale or not, you still fill out this package with your property owner. You still fill this out. You still submit it to the bank. You still get it on record that you're working to solve the problem, which is making sure the bank gets their money. Because that puts it in that holding pattern so that you do have the time to find the right buyer for the property. So that you do have the time, you buy that time for the property owner so that they're not dislocated or relocated sooner than they expect. All right, I'm going to pause there. I want to open it up. I want to have some Q&A. I want anyone to ask questions, role play, whatever the case might be. Let's just do one at a time. Anybody?
Hi, Stephanie. Thank you for sharing. So this is pretty exciting because a lot of people have been asking, what's going on with foreclosures? And I'm like, I don't know. I haven't heard anything. So to hear that it's coming and now we have time to get prepared in all these different ways is exciting. So I definitely am trying to understand the distinction between short sale and foreclosure. So you're saying foreclosure is they're already 90 days behind, but
Correct.
what's the actual understanding or clarity for the short sale process?
So, a short sale process might just be that they haven't, they haven't gotten behind yet, but they're going to, when somebody makes a payment and they're like, I don't have any more reserves to make next month's payment, they might go ahead and call you and say, look, I can't afford my mortgage. They haven't had a foreclosure action filed on them yet, but that's okay because they're in that process and they're going to. So it's still time to say, yes, I can help you with that. It's still time to get the property listed. And more importantly, still time to get this form filled out and submitted to their lender so you can go ahead and get the process going. They don't have to have had a foreclosure action or a les pendens action filed against them to get started. They can get started immediately.
Okay, I have more clarity now. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I know Paul, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, just real quick. So I was curious do you typically have like say a bunch of investors or fixer flippers in your back pocket as well, like in a book of business that, I mean, you might be able to create a coalition of these people that you just work hand in hand with them to just move this process along even faster?
One of the things is that it depends on the property, right? Because here's the thing. The number one person you're going to look out for is that property owner that owes the debt. Okay. And the reason why is because, the bank's only going to settle for what that property is worth. And if you've got a bunch of fixer upper or fixer flippers or investors that think they can buy it at this, it's worth here, but they're going to buy it here, it's never going to happen. The banks aren't going to settle for that. We would get things listed. And yes, we had a huge following of people that, and sometimes investors did get those properties, but we put them out on the open market because the banks require that you've done that, right? They want to collect as much money as possible. So they're going to want to see that it's been on the multiple listing service or whatever advertising platform for 10 days. Okay. Especially if it's an FHA insured or a VA insured, they're going to want it even longer than that. They're going to want to make sure that you're not accepting offers within the first 21 days, typically. Okay. Now, not all your conventional loans are going to be that, but they're going to still want to see proof. They're also going to want to tell you to keep that property active even when you accept an offer that you're going to submit to the lender, and it is all subject to bank approval, right? Every offer's got to have subject to lender approval. Okay. But even when you're accepting those offers and submitting them in, you're keeping that property active so that you can accept additional offers.
Okay, so it's like almost like when you list a house under contingency, then, so to speak.
Yeah, because it is. It's contingent upon, seller has all intents to sell to this buyer. However, it's up to lender approval, right? The lender's got to approve it, especially if it's selling short
What about
of
bump?
what's owed.
Are there bump notices associated then with this kind of a thing? What if you've got something, say, under contract, pending this, that, and the other, and it's a short sale? Then can somebody else come in and offer more or not?
They could, but you can only sell something to one person once, right? And so basically you're going to submit that first offer. That's why you want to make sure you have a good offer. So you're going to submit that offer. Other people can bring you offers. They're in backup positions. Okay. So if the bank comes back at a higher number and offer one says, no, I'm not paying it, well, then you move to two. You move to the next highest offer. Okay.
Right.
So, but that's why you want to make sure here's the thing. When you do this accurately, and we're going to deep dive more into this in next week's class 2, about how you really present these to the lender so that you're landing a raving fan with them too. When you get a reputation and your packages that are going into the bank are stellar, you start getting moved to the top. Okay. People used to say to me all the time, other agents, I don't do short sales. They take a year to negotiate. Da 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 da. No, they don't. Not if you know what you're doing. Not if you submit everything appropriately. And so on this side of the coin, I'm listing the properties. I work for the seller, and I work for that lender that we're trying to get paid off. I'm not working for the buyer that hard because the buyer's just looking for the better deal. I'm in it on this side because I want to make sure that my owner walks away not owing a dollar, not having any type of foreclosure or credit, issues, right? And more importantly, I want to make sure that at the end of the year, they don't receive a 1099 for the difference. So if we do it short, okay, let's say they owe $300,000 and we only sell the property for $260,000. I don't want Bank of America sending them a 1099 saying that they were forgiven 40 grand and then they got to go pay taxes to the IRS and the state on that. You see what I mean? That's why I want to get the highest and best, most money to make everything kosher all the way around, to make all those parties happy. And so not every time is it going to be an investor's market. Now, some of the properties are in such a disrepair that those end up being, those people's, right? But it just, it just depends. It just really depends on the situation.
Okay, and then one last question. I know that we probably going to get into it down the road, but when I believe when I was actually taking my real estate exams years ago, that there was something about is either short sales or foreclosures or bankruptcy or whatever. In the state of Washington, when you walk away, you're going to at least walk away with $40,000. Does that ring a bell or at all?
Back in the day, there was what's considered cash for keys, and there were other incentives. I can promise you that no one in the state of Kentucky walked away with 40 grand in their pocket, cash for keys. FHA had a limit. It was $1,500 and a lot of times it was just $750. Some of the conventional lenders were $3,000, cash for keys. There were circumstances where PMI insurance, may have kicked in and gotten that up to $7,000. But I know different governments, different municipalities, they all have different options, right? They all have different opportunities. And that's where we've got to remember, we are speaking to agents across the entire United States. You definitely need to learn from your broker that's liable for you, visit with them, make sure, how it's going to work in your market and what you need to be doing. But just like Paul brought up, there might be those incentives, because I can tell you right now, Paul, if there was a $40,000 on every property that I was doing a short sale with back in the day,
Right.
Instead of doing 600 closings a year, I would have done 6,000 closings a year.
Right. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And Paul, I think you asked a question in the chat. Did we take our own photos? Yeah, we did. We just snap, 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 snap.
Okay, because what's funny is that I experienced that already with I think it was Rocket Mortgage. I had a probate listing on a river, and then Rocket sends me this app and says, "Oh, we need you to take all these pictures because you're going to be like the appraiser." Kind of, I was like, I'm shocked.
Yeah, and that's what you're going to do. A lot of these lenders, they're going to want you to do a BPO, which is a broker price opinion. And you're going to have to send in all the pictures. They're going to want to see you are the eyes for that bank. And so that's why I say you take pictures of the good, the bad, the ugly, and the really, really nasty. Take the pictures, send it out. Make sure that lender has been able to look at those photos and seeing exactly what you experience, because that way you're gonna get the deal done. And I always said, the more the bank's gonna lose, the worse those pictures have to be. Hey, Tim.
Hey, Steph, great job, girl. How you doing today?
Good. Thank you.
I just wanted to add, I used to do 40 or 50 of these a year myself in the same market you and I are in. In fact, we probably competed for them. But
Yeah.
Something I did when, obviously, as you stated, our fiduciary is the seller, and we want to take care of the bank to the extent that we can. But I always, when I received an offer, made it contingent on lender approval,
Right.
and the release of any shortfall that the seller might otherwise owe.
That's right.
And that's important, because I'm telling the lender, if you don't take this and release that shortage, then we're not doing this deal. So
That's
that
right.
was my first point I wanted to add. And talk to this for a minute, because I'm of the opinion, and you may differ, if we accepted conditionally 3 different offers, all contingent on lender approval, why could you not have the lender decline the first 2 and take the third one as an example, instead of actually doing a backup situation?
You can, and I'm very cautious as to what I teach on that. And the reason why I'm cautious is because I never want a real estate agent to walk away from this call assuming, oh, well, I can just accept 3 offers. You have got to make sure that that wording is 100% accurate, right? And so I want you to visit with your broker, and I want you to talk to them about the best way to do that, because that's bitten me in the butt before. So you can absolutely bring in offers, but you're only going, if you've submitted one to the bank, then you've got to make sure that that one's getting the, the decline, right?
Right.
That's the whole thing here. And so usually what I would do is we can accept as many offers as possible, but we would accept them into our file. I wasn't having the seller sign off on all of those because we don't want to have someone legally coming and saying, well, wait a minute, the seller signed this, the buyer signed this, we have a contract, right? Because that wording's got to be accurate.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
And that's the thing. We're going to dive into next class as well about disclosures and addendums and different things that you can provide that clarifies all of that in writing. So not only is the buyer signing off on that, but if you've got an agent representing the buyer, they're signing off on all of that. And it really spells out exactly how the deal is going to work. And so we'll save that, we'll table that to the next class. But great, Tim. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much.
Stephanie,
Yes.
good morning.
Good
Do
morning.
you happen to have a letter that you sent out that we could possibly kind of modify and use it as a form letter to reach out to the execs?
Yeah, I mean, and really that script that I used, is what the letter necessarily would say. I mean, I'm one of these people that I think when you send things through the mail, they tend to get lost. I'm not saying that you shouldn't. It's just in what I've always done, we're physically going to the property and then we're leaving behind, some information about us and what we're doing. But that script is very similar to that. But yeah, we can circulate some things out that'll help you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other questions? Okay, so next class is March 8th, 11 a.m. Make sure you register at learnshortsales.live. And the reason why is because we're going to tell you, just like Patricia wanting some a form letter and things like that. That way we'll be able to have your information and circulate this out appropriately. This will get recorded, it will get posted, and we'll share that out as well too. But next class, we're going to, how do you properly market your short sale? We talked a little bit about that today, but we're going to take the deep dive into it. I'm going to show you real examples. We're going to go into exactly what these should look like. Disclosure forms, and I'm not talking about the state required forms that you already need to have on any real estate transaction. I'm talking about the ones that truly explain this process so that you're protected, okay? And then how do you manage expectations with the property owner, with the bank, with the buyer? How are you going to manage those expectations? And then addendums to the contract, like Tim brought up, that are necessary. This is not a law class. I've got to disclose, I'm licensed in Kentucky, Indiana, and almost Florida. So, you always have to refer back to your broker for anything so that you are 100% compliant with your real estate law. What we're really just trying to do here is open you up to a new way of being able to pivot in this real estate industry that, may be different than what you've experienced over the course of the last 3 years. And hey, you know what? Who better to win with than us all winning together? So if there's anything that you want to learn, also, on top of that, feel free to reach out and email. If you're part of EXP, drop it in EXP's Freedom Team Workplace group. If you're not part of EXP, reach out to the person that invited you to the call or send me an email and I'm happy to answer that. I cannot wait for the next 3 classes because by the time we're all said and done, I think you all will have a whole different business perspective added to what you already know as far as real estate is concerned. So get ready, show up, and let's make some money. All right. Thank you everybody for today.